And we can also talk about movie club. I watched Midsommar yesterday, and I don't know, guys. Like, obviously, before we start, I'm gonna say that spoilers are gonna be a coming. So if you're planning on watching it, yeah, then don't listen to this, okay? Because I'm about to tell y'all about my feelings on it, which include having to, spoil. I thought it was a good movie. I didn't think it was nearly as great as everyone was saying on Reddit, people were like, they'd be like, oh yeah, that chick was in Midsommar. I love that movie. It was a great movie. And everyone else would be like, yeah, man, that was one of the best horror movies of the last decade. Blah, 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 blah. So I was like, okay, even if I don't like it, I'm going to see something like new and interesting at the very least. Not really. Now, to preface this as well, I'm not necessarily the biggest horror fan. Either thriller or grotesque horror or suspense or any subgenre. I'm not really a fan of much of So there is that. I can't even think of the horror movies that I've actually enjoyed. And I never watch one and then go like, okay, I'm going to watch it again in the future. I watch it and I'm like, well, at least I watched it. That's what happens. So, I like, a couple of zombie movies. Some are more suspenseful and artsy, fartsy than others, but they still have a lot of action in them. Of the movies that I've watched that are directly horror based, I watched The Witch with my friends. I watched, oh man, I forgot the name of the movie. It has Ethan Hawke in it. I almost said Hawking. And he finds videos in the attic of his home that he bought where a bunch of murders happened. Yeah, I don't remember what it was called. It was 10, 15 years ago. But I watched that, and all I could think of was oh my god, this guy is so stupid. This is why I don't like horror movies, because everyone is a lot of things are determined by someone being dumb. All right? It's not much of a horror movie when someone's like, I feel really bad about this. Let's skedaddle, and they all leave, and then it's that'd be the end of the movie. They always have to do something stupid. So I'll say, for one thing, Midsommar did something that's I think they successfully did it so that not it didn't really reek of okay, that was stupid and obviously that would never happen type stuff. I think for what happened, it was mostly that makes sense. You think you're in a nice community. It's weird because you have to walk a bunch of you have to hike after driving out into the wilderness for hours. So you'd initially feel weird, but enough it's bright and sunny and everyone's nice and there's other foreigners and the community's 50 people instead of 10. I could get not feeling creeped out, just being yeah, I'm gonna leave, guys. And I could get even not leaving after the whole person throwing themselves off the cliff, which is a horrible way to die, by the way. It was nice to regard using history of the horror. Had historical backing. Well, the whole point, Marskew, is that we're supposed to be spoiling right now. It's hard to do a movie club without spoiling the movie. Yeah, second person who went down was dumb as shit, alright? Why would you do that? Why would you go down you're about to... he did the exact thing that you're supposed to do if you're jumping from a high height when you're jumping into water. You're supposed to do the whole stock still and put your legs in first, so your legs might break, but hopefully you'll survive. But you don't do that if there's on water. It's such a terrible way to die. And considering technology is now a thing, you could probably, I feel, get some better way of killing people calmly. I feel you could try really hard to get whatever they use to kill people on death row, as opposed to just letting them jump off a cliff. Norwegian comedy thing. I thought, oh, I guess the Vikings is different from Vikings. Really dark context. We're talking about a horror movie, so of course it's gonna be dark. See, the first thing that I looked at, because I looked up, like, you know, after I watched it, I looked at Midsommar spoilers and lore and stuff like that. The first thing I saw was that it was fake. Well, not fake, but rather that there's, like, arguments that what they've badly translated something, or they're basically saying this is historical, but actually it was, like, from a story that they accidentally read as a history. I think that was for the flaying part, where the guy was, like, his back was, like, flayed in the Blood Eagle or whatever it was called. I think that's where I read that it was like, yeah, it actually might not be something they actually did. And obviously not to, like, their own people. See, the cliff thing might not actually be that historical. According to legend.
Twitch Prime sub received. Thank you for appeasing the overmind.
Thank you, Caboose, for the 3 months. Midsommar I like the squid usage. Precipices. Yeah, people write about other attempts at suicide. Came into usage in the 17th century, inspired by a saga, a comical episode known as the Story of the Fools from the Valleys, in which one particular family is so miserable. Miserly? Is that really the right word there? I don't know. That they prefer to kill themselves. Which occurs in no Old Norse text other than this saga. Yeah, so it sounds like it's really not a thing. Like, really not a thing. We have close to no records of actual Viking life. I think it's a bit pointless to, like, really focus on whether or not it is real, because it's a horror movie. What I would prefer to focus on is whether or not this thing gets credit for using such things. Right. Which I feel like it got credit for being mostly just a good movie. So I don't really have a problem with it not being a thing. I guess the one thing that's kind of weird about this, though, is that the black guy, who was from, like, The Good Place, and I just, like, couldn't stop seeing him as the Good Place guy, he, like, knew what it was, and he wouldn't tell them, and he was, like, excited. And it's like, okay, but it's actually not really a thing. They apparently just went around and started calling a bunch of, like, mountain ledges at Testupa. Cheaty, yeah. I'm also, like, again, I don't watch a lot of horror movies or horror TV shows or read a lot of, well, actually, I guess I could say that I read a lot of horror books. I was a big Stephen King fan when I was younger, back when I read, like, constantly. So there's that. But as soon as they showed the disabled person, who you eventually find out is, like, intentionally inbred, because then they're, like, pure, I forget what the reasoning is. I was already kind of like, oh, I don't like that gimmick. Hello. I don't like that, not the inbreeding thing, which even that, like, I'm a little over. You know, there was, like, the hills have eyes, And then there was the X-Files episode that was like, they both were like the same thing except different scales. And I feel like with Game of Thrones, and actually, well, they didn't have terrible inbred children. They had terrible children, but they weren't like horribly disfigured. I don't know. I just feel like, first of all, inbreeding is kind of like an overused thing, which is a sentence I'd never thought I'd say. And then I also just don't like the disabled person looking really grotesque and being really weird, adding to the horror, you know? Because that's literally what that guy was there for. It was just like, oh, that's a weird thing for them to do. How horrific. And then he just like kind of walked around occasionally and looked horrific. And I was like, meh. Disability isn't inherently horror. Yeah, exactly. I think it's really hard to be careful about that. Yeah. Because you can, like, obviously this was, I think the angle was that because it is intentionally inbred, it's like it's okay that it's horribly disfigured and it's the villainous thing, or supposedly villainous. They actually didn't do anything. I forget what the guy's name was. The guy didn't actually do anything. He just, like, hung around and looked really bad. But yeah, it just seems like it happens a lot, and there's almost no good excuse for it. The only twist that's ever worked out is to make them a good guy, right? But then, of course, the reason that it works out as a twist is that it's subverting our expectations that a disabled, a weird-looking person wouldn't be the evil person. It's like, And the trope of the old lady is scary. Yeah. I know some people, like, there's kind of like this weird, like, everyone's recognizing tropes, and then there's people who are like, stop focusing on tropes and just enjoy the movie. There's like this weird, like, argument thing going on, which is fine. But I remember I realized why Splash made me so uncomfortable was because I finally learned this trope. The Born Sexy Yesterday trope. Yeah, when I learned about that, I was like, oh, that's why I think that movie is so fucking weird. I thought a Splash would be uncomfortable. It was just so, and the reason was because he was basically sexing up a lady, like, for the majority of their time together, and she was of the social capabilities of a child, and I was like, that's weird. I think it's credit for the history stuff since he uses common beliefs. Like when he takes Santa Claus horror films. The old lady thing is like a standard for this director. Like with Tarantino and Feet. I didn't actually know that. I don't watch many Tarantino films. But, yeah, I guess touching on the old lady is scary trope. They didn't push that hard in Midsommar. I think Hereditary would be different because it's literally about like a line of women. Like a heritage of women, but anyways. I didn't watch that movie. So I didn't really mind it or notice it. But now that you've mentioned it, I'm like, yeah, that is kind of the thing now, is to have the old lady be the scary person. I think that was something that was subverting our expectations, maybe 10 years ago, but now it's kind of like a... Alright. Now the real shocker is when the old white guy actually is the big boss sorcerer dude. I think the old lady thing being an evil person actually is not even, it's not even new. The way they're showing it might be new, but it's not new. Because, there's literally like Snow White old lady. Turns out to be the queen, but still. Anyways, I didn't like that little tidbit. It was literally just a little tacked on thing. Oh yeah, we inbreed this guy because then he can tell us what to do. And I was like, that was pretty much it. And then 3 other shots of this guy just looking sad and disfigured, and you're like, okay. So speaking of ways that like they film stuff, I also am not on board lots of like drawn out what's the word? I want to say frames, not frames. Like really drawn out pieces of like watching a forest or snow or a windstorm or nature with some somewhat creepy music in the background, and it's just, that's just it. I like, horror films are just so slow. All the ones that people are like, yeah, it was amazing, are so slow. And I don't necessarily think that's a problem. Things can be slow and not have a dozen 20-second overviews of the land. All right? Because we don't have to have a bunch of speed to signify something is scary or in a hurry. The opposite sometimes has a much more dramatic effect, so I understand it. I just feel like it's going way too much. I don't understand that reference, Houseless Gamer, I'm sorry. Is it a Game of Thrones one? I don't know. But yeah, that's like, it's literally what the movie started off with, was 3 10-second like overviews of snow and winter and shit, and like, I know that's trying to give like an ambiance, and that's fine, but it also kind of feels like I don't know, like they're trying too hard. Like they want film majors in college to like read into this a lot and be like, oh, well, this is why they did it, because snow signifies this and also and you know, and this, where just like baseline it adding to spookiness could also be fine. Took that as a Shining reference because it was snowing. That seems like a stretch. Yeah, exactly, Cuddle Bunny. But it happened in The Witch too. Now, to be clear, The Witch was not the other movie this guy did. This guy who made Midsommar did Hereditary, which I haven't seen. But I felt a lot of parts really mimicked The Witch. And just as I said, like you'll see like advertisements for horror movies, like not Saw-like horror movies, but like suspenseful thriller types. And they'll have the same thing kind of going along with it. Like long drawn out sequences with no like talking, but maybe some scary music over it.
Resubscription received.
Or like maybe a monologue in the background, but again, just like long drawn out. And I'm just like, God, I don't want to, like, it seems, ugh, God. Oh, what a Bismillard, thank you for the 5-month resub. Good to see you again for off to Australia. With flight goes well, thank you. I really hope I'm not getting sick, but my voice has been, like, I've been waking up with a very, like, raw throat. I'm hoping it's just, like, the dryness in the air. I'm gonna put on a humidifier tonight. Popular catchers in the video game. Oh, I never played that. I'm trying to imagine what it sounds like, though. I think it's, I'm sure it'll be funny. The opening was probably the most disturbing part of the film for me. Yeah, agreed. I liked the opening. You know, when the first 30 seconds to 60 seconds of the whole overview of the world thing, I was like, all right, here we go. But when they actually got into it, when she was like freaking out about her sister and calling her boyfriend and setting up all the plot that was going to continue on into the rest of the movie, I was like, this is great. This is really good. Very suspenseful. Makes you very interested in the characters. Gives me a good idea of what the characters are. And at the time, I said, I'm sure there will be continued usage of this. I was actually disappointed with how little they seemed to use that. How freaky it was. Again, guys, those who are tuning in here, this is going to be full of spoilers for the movie Midsommar, so if you're going to watch it, don't pay attention. The sunny green field aesthetic killed it. Again, safe travels, good night. Are you focusing on a specific genre or switching it up? But this week, or well, next week's will be an Australian movie, and I'm thinking it's going to be the original Mad Max. Because I like to go, when I go to countries, I like to watch a movie from the country. Last time I was in, when I was in Germany, I watched, oh crap. I want to say Das Boot, but I didn't watch that. I almost watched that. Goodbye Stalin, is that what it was called? Anyways, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Houseless. Yeah. Yeah, that was a great movie. So, I want to continue doing that. There's a lot of Australian movies that are like critically acclaimed that I just have never heard of. But everyone says, you know, Mad Max, and I loved the third Mad Max, so I'm just gonna try and watch the original. I said original. Hello, Zergling, yeah. I love the new one. I think the new one is awesome. I think I'm gonna think it's better than the original, that's for sure. Anyway. Yeah, I get tonal shifts as well. I think that okay. But back to the whole, like, part I was gonna spoil. I thought they were gonna use, like, just, like, asphyxiation more, right? That actually never come up again. She had 2 flashbacks. Well, she had, like, a partial one and then a real flashback to the incident. When she got high, she saw her sister's face, I think, or something like that. And then when she was freaking out about the guys killing themselves, she saw when she went to sleep, that's right, she went to sleep and saw them up against those rocks. For those who are listening, haven't seen the movie but don't care about spoilers, to describe it, it opens up where she's freaking out about her sister who's bipolar, and her sister emailed her with like a email saying, this is the end, I'm like, mom and dad are coming with me, goodbye. And it turns out that she had hooked up the 2 cars in the garage and like closed all the windows and whatnot, and then like fed pipes upstairs through her parents' bedroom to kill them and to kill herself. So a very grim opening. I'll get to that in a second, Marksky. So I really thought they were gonna do more with that. Either bring her back, the sister, or the parents, like more of the like, oh my god, this reminds me of my parents. They did that once and that was it. And then it was very much so just, it was like 20% goddamn that's spooky and that's a real strong way to open a movie, and like 80% to make it clear that her boyfriend was a dick. Like the whole movie basically comes up to a point where she has to decide between some rando Joe Schmo and her boyfriend, who she had just seen cheating on her under unfortunate circumstances, but that's not the point. She saw him cheating on her, and that's all she knew. And she chooses him to die, and he dies. And at the end of the movie, she starts to smile. Pretty messed up. I liked that whole string throughout the movie. I enjoyed that. But I really thought the whole scene and setup for the suicide was really underused, because it was really quite the spooky shit. Like, and it had a lot of questions, you know, like why kill your parents as well as yourself? But anyways, the disability point is someone who's most very able. Losing sight, legs, blah 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 is quite scary. That's never what actually scares people, though. That's not why. I don't think that's a valid reason to to sell disabled people being the villains, because people are afraid to be the villain. I don't think that's at all why it ever happens. It happens because it's shocking when you see someone who has a huge, and this is gonna sound really bad, so like we're gonna get real here for a second. But when you see someone who has like maybe like a tumor on their face, which is kind of what like happened with the character in the movie, your initial thought is like, oh. And while that's like not the exact same thing as being like, oh my god, this monster's chasing me type scared, it's a bit like, oh shit, that's uncomfortable. Do I like ignore it? Do I say something about it? Can they speak? Like, oh shit, like what do I do here? It's very uncomfortable, maybe for like some social things, but then it's been like super overused and dragged to the extreme where now it's like Frankenstein's monster. Or it'll be disfigured and really, you know, creepy looking. Of course he's a monster. That's why everyone assumed he was a monster. If he looked like Hugh Jackman, they wouldn't assume he was a monster. Of course, it makes sense that he would look weird because he's a mishmash of a bunch of different people. I get that. But the point is, like, it's been so overused. Yeah, the opening seems almost like a separate short film. Like, I understood why, but it just... And it was a very dramatic way of saying how much that boyfriend can be a dick, but I don't know. I just thought they would have used it more. Would have liked it more. So, there's that. I would have liked to have seen more of the guy who brought them there and his reasoning for seemingly being a good person, but actually being an asshole. So they kind of set it up well, I think. They just kind of inserted 1.5 lines from the other guy of the town who brought in those 2 guys from England or whatever, where, you know, it kind of shows that he has something kind of icky about him when he was like, yeah, we were dating, and then that guy came along and she was like, we didn't date. And he was like, oh, yeah. Took 2 minutes, and immediately you're like, oh, okay, this guy's got some misconceptions. What else can he be, you know, misconceptioning about? But aside from being a little socially awkward with, like, bringing up her parents' death, the guy who brought them never really had a moment of, like, oh, what's wrong here? And it doesn't necessarily have to have that, but I would have liked to have seen him, like, at the end, been more like, this is... I guess they kind of made his excuse that he's so fucking in love with his own family that he would do anything for them. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'm okay with that, actually. Maybe he's actually not, well, besides allowing all this stuff to happen, he's not at all in any other way malicious, but he's totally on board with whatever his family does because they made him feel so accepted. There was one critique about the movie that I thought was very valid, that some people thought it was like a comedy. I watched it alone in my bedroom with the lights off, I wanted to eat popcorn, but I ran out of popcorn. So I ate an orange with my cats around me. So I didn't get the same, like, heaviness into almost comical relief that I imagine a movie theater would have had. But when I read that review, I was like, oh, I could see that. Like, when they first enter into the village and it's beautiful and all that, but then they actually have the song in the background's actually being played by a bunch of flute players. I can imagine laughing at that. If I was in a room of people, I usually watch movies with my mom, so I'd be like with my mom. If I was in a room of people and there was that sex scene that happened and all of it's kind of like a little bit like, okay, and then there's the end. The end. There's the end of the sex scene where the woman puts like her hands on his butt, like trying to like, how to say this? Trying to like make it go further in. As if that's what's gonna help make the baby. That I probably would have been like, oh, what? That was weird. I could definitely see, like, I could see there being a tone problem depending on the circumstances in which you watch the movie. Yeah, not really second date material. Yeah. Their grasp of reproduction science is probably tenuous. That's true. I don't think you really got like a... I guess they were all pretty... There was no technology. They made it a point, as always, in any horror film to, you know, make sure the cell phone wasn't working. I guess there was a lot of questions. Like, I don't really care if the lore doesn't matter when it comes to horror films. You know, that's why I didn't really care if like the legends were true or not. But I watched. Oh, here we go. I watched Get Out and I watched Us. As soon as I saw them get like really highly reviewed, I was like, let's check that out. And I really liked both. I think Get Out overall is a better movie, but Us as a, what's the word? As a feeling, like atmosphere, I think did it better. But the biggest problem in Us was that it actually made no fucking sense. Like, the more you thought about Us and how it came to be, and you're just like, what? But I'm okay with that. I am totally on board having that option of just like, you have to make up everything by yourself, just enjoy the movie and come up with everything by yourself. Go ahead. Have fun with it. I'm actually okay with that in some regards. If the rest of the movie's good, and I really did like the rest of the movie for Us. Well, horror is a really wide umbrella, Mark Skew. I tried to kind of cover that in the beginning when I was like, you know, psychological thriller, and there's the... What is it called? Like gore porn or something? Like the Saw genre? Yeah, this is definitely just a queasy little thriller. Ugh. Torture porn, thank you, exactly. Yeah. Not a fan of that. Anyways, I forget what I brought this up. Story. Oh, people were like complaining. Well, not really complaining. They were all hypothesizing, like how this could work every 90 years. And when I was watching the movie, like knowing where this would lead, of course, I also was like, how is there a village of, 100 plus people, 200 people, let's say, that at no point did anyone go like, guys, this is fucked up. Like, what are we doing here? Like, no one ever was brought up with a little more compassion. Because this is every 90 years, you know? Like, this isn't like something you do every other week. So you kind of get, like, numb to it. And even then, there's usually one person that's like, wait a second, guys. But every 90 years, this happens? And no one from that third generation is like, well, this is messed up, you guys. You get that one screaming right in the middle of daytime. That was really good. I liked that part. There are certainly a lot of scenes in the movie that I thought were pretty fucking spot on. They chilled me and they made sense, and they kind of tied things together in the background, so you kind of had to do like a little bit of your own thinking, as opposed to just getting everything shoved in your face. Like, I like that. It was from the girl. The British guy had already been killed when they said he had left for the train station. And then the girl was like, what? No, I wouldn't do that. And then she, like, left and never was ever seen again. I found it funny that, like, I couldn't stop seeing the other friend as the guy from We're the Millers, the really dweeby dude. I mean, he grew up, and, he looks good. Kind of a weird-looking guy, but he looks good. But he was such a perfect little teenage dweeb in that movie. I was like, oh, okay. And the main character is in Little Woman, which I saw recently. I thought she was great in Little Woman. I thought she was perfect. He was the fool. Yeah, We're the Millers guy. That was Little Woman. I really liked it. I definitely suggest seeing it. Hello. Yeah, Little Woman was great. They made it very different.
Resubscription received.
But not in a bad way.
Apparently you are doing something right, Captain.
It's not a linear story like every other adaptation. Thank you, Orcasov, for the 4-month resub. Orcas OV, I don't know, something like that. And everyone in it was great. I loved all the casting for Little Woman. Like I said, the girl who was in Midsommar was the painter in Little Woman, and she did a fantastic job because you can even see it in Midsommar, like, right? Anyone who's watched it, she's only like 24, so she's kind of young, but she's very short, and she just has that baby face. She has that round, young-looking face. So, you know, obviously she can kind of fit a lot of time periods and a lot of ages can be just kind of like guesstimated for her. But she also had to play the first part of Little Woman, which is when they're all like young, like 12, 13, I guess. And it was just perfect. She was super awkward and they made her look very different. Like she was a teenager trying to figure things out. And then I heard everyone saying like, yeah, I loved her in Midsommar. And that's what got me to watch Midsommar, which I think she did an excellent job in. I just like, I've almost never watched a horror film being like, I'm going to watch that again. That gave me chills. That gave me just like, I could think about a lot of things. Like, not often does that happen for me, except for Get Out and Us. I really liked both of those. I'd watch Us, and I'd be like, well, that doesn't make any sense, that doesn't make any sense, and that doesn't make any sense. But that would be okay, because I'm like, but what? What if they did this instead? Like, what if this was why that happened? Top 3 movies of last year? I have no idea, dude. What movie came out yesterday? I've never listed them like that, so I don't know. You'd have to give me a list of movies that came out in 2020. Cats is the movie, is the true horror movie. Yes, my friends are very excited to see that. My friend David is like, he's like ecstatic. Every time he starts talking about it and like detailing all the things that went wrong and how stupid it is, he starts laughing and he hasn't even seen it yet. He has like a big belly laugh. He'll just like, the entire apartment complex will hear it, and that'll always happen when he's talking about cats. That one I'm just like never gonna watch ever. I see no reason to ever watch it. Not even on the airplane when I've slept for 20 hours. I have nothing else to do. I like The Rise of Skywalker. That's another controversial one. But end opinion on Midsommar is like solid thriller film. 7 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10. Advise watching it by yourself. And honestly, I feel like it might also be helpful to be a little high while you watch it. There's a lot of moments where they are high. Like drugs are a big deal in the story. They get drugged. They do drugs. The drugs open up the visions, like... I was not high when I watched it, but I was watching after a long day and was ready to relax, so there was some parts where I kind of felt like I was like, you know, like getting like the weed giggles where I was like, what was that? That was stupid, right? And see, Missing Link. I just don't like that art animation. I don't like that art style. I didn't bother. I didn't want to watch Coraline either, so. I didn't like Paranorman. I liked... Oh. What's the other one? With the kid and the paper? Can't remember what it was called. I like that one though. I was up Chipotle bowl to my friend. I don't know what that means. If the two guys had worked together on their thesis of this group, they might have dug up enough info to think these people are crazy. They might have. I'm actually not sure that's true though. Clearly, the people were planning on killing them, and didn't, like, in all things considered, did not take a long time to kill them. Looks like a mess, tastes pretty good. Kind of feel bad for eating it. I do love that as a description. I disagree with it, but I love it as a description. I wanted to see Knives Out for a while. You know, it was like an interesting trailer, but then I read the reviews and they were all very, very good. And I think that type of movie is something that appeals to me. Almost like a Clue, I think is what people have kind of compared it to, which I really like Clue. So I wanted to watch it, but then kind of like, you know, either I was busy and then another movie came out I wanted to watch, and it happened like over and over again. So I want to watch Parasite. I do like Korean horror films. So there's that. I forgot about that. Well, I like some Korean horror films. I like the way Koreans do scary, I guess, in psychology. Kubo. Yes, thank you, exactly. But no movie theater around me, like no movie theater around me was playing Parasite. Yeah, agreed, Moloch. Like, there's a lot of things you can complain about for the Star Wars sequels, but... Yeah, Train to Busan was a zombie action flick. I wouldn't call it horror. Isn't Korean Ghost just a dead Asian girl in a bedsheet? That whole sentence is a question mark to me alongside your username. I want to watch Tale of Two Sisters, yeah. Again, horror is just a big umbrella. I'm pretty sure thriller is underneath the horror umbrella, I think. I haven't heard of anyone actually really advising a true horror film in quite some time. Almost all the ones that are like, you gotta go see this, are all thrillers. Parasite's the newest movie from a director who's well known for his thrillers, and it's being touted as like the best film of the decade, like a must-see. I couldn't tell you what it's about, but I guess that's all I can tell you, really. Korean films are kind of like getting their time to shine alongside the rest of the Korean Hallyu movement. They've been good for a while. I know everyone brings up Old Boy. I really hate that though. I didn't actually like Old Boy that much for many different reasons, but I like many other Korean films. And then if they don't know what Old Boy is, then they're like, oh, is it like K-dramas? And you're like, no. Poor guy who has a tutor with super rich family. Oh, there you go. That's the premise. I'll definitely see it eventually. If I have to, rent it on Google Play or something. I won't get into the Old Boy where I liked it and didn't like it, but it did lead me to looking at the movies the director did otherwise, and he did. It's an acronym, which is why I can't remember it. Work, Google, work. Joint Security Area, JSA. He did JSA, which I really liked. Yeah, Parasite's getting a lot of traction also because it's not too subtle and it's class warfare themes. So I've heard. It's a giant letdown when I finally watched it. I don't think it's like aged or anything like that, but I do think that it is something that some people would love and some people wouldn't love. But yet it's talked about as if it's something that everyone would really enjoy. Memories of Murder is quite good. Yeah. Really fucked up, too. It's based off a true story. Well, I guess that's kind of a spoiler, so I won't say it. I'm always like weird about spoiling things that are based off a true story because you could literally go and like already know the ending, like Titanic. Like people back in like 1997 or whatever, they're like, yeah, Titanic. Oh, hold on, I won't spoil it. Like, does anyone do that? Isn't it literally in the film trailers that it dies, that it crashes? You're gonna play StarCraft. I come to learn. Eventually. You can see in my title, though, it says Movie Club, Midsommar, into Co-op Mutation. We're doing spoilers? Yes. We're doing spoilers for Midsommar. But don't do spoilers for other movies. Never watched Zodiac, but probably did. That's true, Mark Skew. But that's like that's a very poor analogy because obviously it's the Titanic and it breaking in half is like 50% of the movie. But the idea is there. Like I was about to spoil something about Memories of Murder and it's not about the spoiler. But probably isn't good to spoil it. It's about the other things that happen in the movie. No Nightbot? There's Nightbot. I just never made a command. By spoilers, I mean genre? Huh? Never heard of Audition. Puck just like retweeted things from 2013. That was weird. I'm not sure why it isn't Nightbot. I'm Houseless Gamer. I mean, I have Nightbot. I don't know what setting I'd have to turn on. I was kind of meh about the host. The Black Woman? I saw that, though. Is that the one with Daniel Radcliffe? It being Daniel Radcliffe kind of took me out of the immersion too often. Are you doing pre-flight drinking? No. My flight doesn't leave for like literally 24 hours, I think. What do you think of The Room? I never watched it. I don't ever plan on watching it. I watched the movie that made fun of The Room. It's a very popular horror book, but is the movie you're talking about? The film? Going to Dan Radcliffe? Did I like the movie that made fun of The Room? Yeah, I'd say it was funny enough. I watched it on an airplane. I might stream when I'm in Australia, Houseless Gamer. I just don't want to promise any streams if things don't work out. I actually was thinking about not streaming today because it's like, yeah, as I said, like I kind of feel like I'm getting sick, which would just be terrible because I was sick literally like a month ago. All right, it's not fair. Do I take a lot of flights? I wouldn't say a lot, but certainly more than the average person. This version before Daniel 1. Okay, I didn't watch that. It's Epiphany? What does that mean? Got any reading for the flight? Yes, I'm gonna read Little Woman. So this is Movie Club, which is about to end. I also have Book Club, which is a monthly thing. And I'm reading Little Woman. No? No what?